So, all right, let's start with the first game I played against the one and only, the legend, the world champion, Magnus Carlsen. So I start by playing pawn to e4. Magnus plays pawn to c5. I go knight to f3, knight to c6. I played c3 here, and here Magnus played e5. I know that I've looked at this vaguely in the past. It's a very odd kind of opening line that Black can play. I feel like somebody played this against me, and it wasn't a World U tournament. There was some event I played. I can't remember. I think it was at the Marshall many years ago, and they played this e5 move, which I know is not. It's a move, but it's not supposed to be very good. Anyway, I played pawn to d4. He takes, goes knight f6 here, and we basically end up turning this into what's very close to a 4 knights opening. So, for example, if you go back to move 1, there is this opening, the 4 knights, where you get to this position, and it's a very similar structure, but the difference being that when we reach this position here, of course, there are no pawns on c2 and c7. So now I trade. I go knight bishop to d3. Probably not the best move, by the way. I probably should have gone knight c3 to prevent Magnus's idea of bishop to d6, because after this, he gets the bishop to a very nice square here, and there's no longer a threat on the bishop. So Black's bishop gets to much better squares. Anyway, bishop d6, we castle. I go knight to c3 here. Magnus goes rook to e8. I played h3 here. Who is this guy? I know who is this guy. Bishop e5. I play queen c2 again. Very important here not to blunder this pawn. Potentially like something like this. He could trade, and then he wins this pawn because rook guards knight. I no longer have a second defender of the pawn on e4 here. So therefore, I decided, you know what, let's think about this conceptually. What is Black trying to do? And most of the time, Black wants to push his pawn to d5. So it makes sense here to go queen to c2, because now I can line up the battery, line up the bishop and the queen against this pawn on h7. So now h6 played. Bishop to d2 is what I played. Pawn to d5. We trade the pawns. I played rook fe1 here. And we reached a standard position kind of after bishop d7, where I think Black is probably very slightly better due to the fact that my bishops are a little bit ugly in the center part of the board relative to this pawn on d5. And furthermore, I can't really make use of these open c and b files, basically, whereas Black definitely can. He can go like queen b6 and rook c8. So I think Black is a little bit better here, but it's not a lot better. So rook d1, rook c8 played. Now I play queen to b1, queen to b6. Yes, chat. By the way, I do have a brother, just in case you're wondering. So when you say that joke, it's kind of funny. Although my brother also has a beard all the time, so I couldn't be my brother. Rook e2 played here. Bishop to d4 played by Magnus, trying to trade off these rooks on e2 and e8, and then line up this battery towards my king on g1. So rook to e1 played here. Rook to e6. Why no beard? Because I had the beard for like a month and a half, you guys. It was getting itchy. It was getting annoying. And it'll be back in like 5 days. So no worries, you guys. Okay, so rook e6 played. So now I go bishop f5. We trade the rooks. Magnus takes. I take back. Pretty even position, I think, here. But the problem for white is that Black's rook is on the ideal file, whereas my rook really doesn't have any squares on this open e line. So queen to a6 played here. And now I made a mistake. I think I played rook e7. Maybe not a mistake. He goes rook d8. And here I make a mistake. Aha. This is where I go wrong. Because here I played a3, which is not the best move. Probably I can just play rook e1. Or bishop to f4, I guess, which at least the computer likes. Very strange move. But actually very logical at the same time. Because if you go back here, the bishop on d2 is not exactly brilliantly placed. It's only guards in case Black captures. Whereas Black's bishop... basically, you know, you get the wooden shield here pretty much with the bishop on d4. So basically, I play a3, which is not the right move. Now he goes queen b6, pawn to b4, wooden shield LMAO. I know, chat. I was going to add one other thing, getting back very briefly to PogChamps. This is crazy that it's all over, because I really wish there was more of it. Like, it would have been really nice to be covering PogChamps today instead of having to play in a chess tournament. Anyway, queen to d6 played by Magnus. I go rook e1. Now he goes queen to a6 back. Now I played a4, which is definitely not the right move. Very tough position in terms of trying to find the best move. PogChamps 2 when I can't confirm or deny its existence, but most likely there will be a PogChamps 2. But again, I can neither confirm nor deny when it will be. Jesus, I sound like such a terrible politician there. It was such a politician answer. Sorry, you guys. So here I played a4, which is not the best move. Queen to c4 played by Magnus. Now I go knight to b5, attacking the pawn on d4, or the bishop on d4. He goes knight to e4. Very good move, by the way. So chat, at this point in the game, I was getting quite low on the clock, so I was having to figure out what I was going to do, because at this point I think I had maybe 2 minutes left. And with only two minutes left on the clock, I had to find the right idea. And what I concluded here was very wrong. And to his credit, Magnus found the right reply here. So because my idea here was basically I was looking at the following possibilities. I was looking at playing knight to b5, or playing something like rook to c1. And at the end of the day, I decided I was going to play knight to b5 here. And the reason that I thought I would be able to play knight b5 is because now on knight e4, I can take and go bishop e3. He takes, I go here. And black can't push the pawn because I take the knight. And if black takes this one, now my rook gets really active. And there's all kinds of pressure here. The rook is attacking everything. So I thought this would be fine for me. And actually, it's not fine for me, apparently. Because as we see, the computer says he can go queen e8 and he's winning. So today I clearly was not in my best form. Because I thought this was fine. And as the computer says, it's not fine at all. That being said, this was my idea, but then when I played this and rook c1, Magnus found the very nice move, knight to c3. Brilliant move here, creating this idea to fork my king and rook, but also to just start jamming this pawn all the way down to the end of the board and making a queen. Queen to f3 is what I played. My original idea was to go queen to d3, but now there's a really nasty tactic. Pawn to d4, bishop takes pawn, rook takes bishop, queen takes c3, and now he goes rook to d1 check, hitting my king and my rook. If I capture, I lose the queen, obviously. And if I go king to h2, he goes queen to f4, more geometry, and black will just capture the pawn, or capture the pawn with checkmate, or the rook on c1 with his rook and queen guarding it. So I really miscalculated this. I played queen f3, and here Magnus made a move that I think was a big mistake, and it fits in the theme of his day, I would say. So Magnus today, it seemed like he ended up on a plus score anyway, I think, when all was said and done, but he was definitely losing. He was losing to Dubov. He was also losing to Grischuk, and so he didn't have his best day ever. And one reason I can tell you that I know that he wasn't on form is because in this game specifically, he played pawn to d4 here, which is still a good move, but it makes it a lot easier to play for white. Whereas if black goes something like queen to b2 with the idea of knight e2 and then pushing this pawn because I can't capture it since my bishop guards the rook, it would have been extremely hard for me to salvage this, and I'm not even sure I would have salvaged this at this point, because as you guys see, the evaluation is already really going downhill for white. So this would have been a better move. Instead, Magnus goes d4. We trade. I take. He takes here. I go king h2. Which I think was a mistake, by the way. I think what I should have played here was rook to c7, or not. No, of course not, because I'm terrible at chess. He just goes check, and he goes check, takes, and he goes rook a8, and he's completely winning because the rook is behind the pawn, and black is just winning. Okay, so I guess I actually did play the right move when I played king h2. Queen to d7 is what Magnus played. I go rook a3 again. I'm down one pawn here. We've got the same number of pawns, same pawn structure as well on the king side. But basically, he's got this extra one that he needs to push down the board. So the point is, I need to basically use my rook and queen in tandem and try to basically create, more of the right triangle action and prevent black from ever pushing this pawn. So here Magnus goes a5, correct move. Obviously, if I take the pawn, I blunder this check, hitting my king and hitting my rook at the same time. So I go g3. Magnus goes queen d5, queen c3, attacking the pawn on a5. Rook to a8 played here, and now I play pawn to h4. And at this point, black is significantly better. Once again, my rook is very passive. It's stuck behind this pawn. Also, long term, there are issues with maybe some kind of checkmate coming down towards where my king is. So a4, queen to b4, now queen to c6, guarding the pawn. I go here. Next couple of moves aren't really relevant. I just keep chilling. Eventually, Magnus has to move off, because I'm just basically chilling. My queen is just going here, here, and back. So with the only 3 squares going on, Magnus has to go rook f5. So now I go queen b2, keeping the rook on the pawn, also on the third rank, and then trying to put my queen on a square from which I can maybe checkmate him down the road as well. So queen to a7 here. Wasn't there some move here where the white bar spiked? I don't think so. I played rook e3, queen c5, and now I go king g1. Worth noting, by the way, chat, if black pushes the pawn here, I don't take with the rook because then there's rook f2 check and I lose the game. But I can actually take with the queen, and after rook takes f2, king g1, black has no way to protect the rook with his queen, and so he has to exchange the queens. And as we know, if you're spending your every waking hour of the day studying Dvoretsky's endgame manual like Ludwig is, this is a very well-known rook and 3 pawns against rook and 2 pawns. A drawn position. Technically speaking, black can never win this, even though he has 1 extra pawn. So therefore Magnus cannot liquidate. He has to go queen c5, king to g1, queen to c6. Now I go queen to a2, trying to again keep an eye on the pawns and again try to line up the rook on this a4 pawn. Goes here, go king h2. Important, by the way, that I don't do rook a3 because then black can set it up with rook c5, and after I take, he has check here, and he just goes checkmate with the rook and the queen, guarding each other from distance. So that's why here I have to go king h2. So now if black moves the rook away, there's no idea of the checkmate because my king is off the last rank of the game. So he goes king h7, I go rook a3, he goes queen c5, and now we repeat some moves, and finally Magnus goes rook f2. Kind of running out of ideas here because I'm going to take the pawn. And at this point, it's really a question of which endgame works for black. So Magnus could have played king g8, rook a4. Wait, sorry, wrong square. Go here, here, takes... he could have played this endgame, although with the 3 versus 2, this is again a well-known drawn line with queens on the board. Queen in 3 versus queen in 2. No, it's not winning, you guys. This is just a draw. This is a draw. So in the game, Magnus decides the more optimal chance for me to make a mistake is to play this order. But now you lose the pawn at f7. King h6. Tell me the name of the book on the endgames. It's called Dvoretsky's Endgame Manual, version 4. It is available on Amazon, I believe. So Dvoretsky, D-V-O-R-E-T-S-K-Y. Very nice guy. I think he died probably about 1.5 years or 2 years ago. But, I mean, a great endgame composer, a great trainer of chess, and he was a great guy. I never had the chance to ever do any training with him, but my brother actually did many, many years ago. So just a guy who made tremendous contributions to the game of chess and someone who will always be remembered. It was 4 years ago. Was it really that long ago now? Man, crazy. So yeah, anyway, there's somebody who made great contributions to chess. Okay, so Magnus decides he wants to play this one, this queen and 3 pawns versus my queen and 2 pawns. The issue for black is that the king has no safety net here. So he goes king h6, I go here, threatening to make a checkmate, by the way. Magnus checks, I go here, he goes queen here, I go queen here, attacking this pawn. More geometry, you guys. So one thing that you should realize with queen endgames especially is that basically when you play endgames in chess and there are only queens on the board, you need to think about geometry and what sort of geometry and triangles you can make. So here Magnus goes queen, goes queen d4. Important, by the way, if black pushes the pawn, I play check, I hit the king, and I hit the pawn, and I take next move. So he goes queen d4, trying to do more geometry, get his queen centralized where my queen can't touch anything, basically. So at this point, black's trying to use his queen in a better position than my queen. So here I go queen to e7, preventing this pawn from going up, but also preventing the black king from ever coming into the game. So he goes queen d5, I go king h2. Again, just a quiet move, avoiding this checkmate. He goes check, I go here. He goes here, we repeat, and now I go king h3 again. And the problem is basically black has no way to push this pawn forward without exposing his king, which is just stuck here on the very edge of the board, essentially. So at this point, the game is basically drawn. So Magnus keeps trying to get the queen to a more optimal position. But now I just keep waiting, and I just never move my queen, and black's king can never join the fray. So for that reason, this is just a draw. So he goes queen check, he goes here, and now he goes queen c8. Again, trying to put the queen on a square from which there are no checks, but now the geometry comes into play because I go queen e3 check, king h7, and now I go here, check, queen a7 check, hitting the king, hitting the pawn, and Magnus offered a draw, and I accepted because after king back, I very simply take the pawn, and now it's just king, queen, and 2 pawns against king, queen, and 2 pawns, just a complete drawn endgame. All right. So before I move on to the next game, thank you to G-Funks for the $5. Thank you to Luke Goblin for the Prime. Thank you to NPC Chris for the 5. Thank you to Spacey's 96 for the tier 1. Thank you to X Shadow X 420 for the Prime. Thank you to Felix 1743 for the Prime. Thank you to iLight 33 for the 3 months. Thank you to Dramatic Junior for the 6 months. Thank you to Stefan 987 for the 2 months. Thank you to Rare Base Josh for the Prime. Thank you to Region TV for the Prime. Thank you to Heinrad for the Prime. Thank you to Apex 6 for the Prime. Thank you to Jolly Green Man for the Prime. Thank you to Bongo Bum SC for the tier 1. And thank you to Spaceys for the other 100 bits as well. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. So I drew the first game of the day against Magnus, so I'm going to move on to game 2. Obviously, one thing that's important is that every game really matters in a format like this, because did I win or lose any games? You have to hang around for the whole show. But what I was going to say is when you're playing in an event where top 4 qualify out of 6 players, it's very important to keep the equilibrium and try to be solid, because one loss can really just ruin your whole event. Thank you to Bitter Live for the Prime. Appreciate it. Thank you, man. So it's very important to just stay very solid and very in the moment. And certainly drawing this game against Magnus was very critical, because if I'd lost that game, I would have been off to a very bad start, and then I would have black in the second game against Grischuk, and the mental part would have been pretty difficult to maintain. So drawing the game against Magnus was a big boost. So E4, E5. Knight F3, I play Knight C6, Bishop B5, Knight F6, playing the Berlin defense like my heroes Ludwig and Slicker. Grischuk castles his king. I play Knight takes E4 here. Rook to E1, and now I go Knight to D6, attacking the bishop on B5. Knight takes E5, Bishop to E7. Of course, if I take the bishop, I run into the discovered check on the king, where the knight hits the queen, and I think everybody's already seen the XQC game against Reckful, so this is one of the most common themes that you want to avoid. Oh, actually, no, I'm wrong. It wasn't Slicker. Sorry, it's not Slicker. It was Moist Critical who did this. It was not Slicker. My bad. It was Slicker. Or not Slicker. It was Moist Critical. So, no, it's actually Ludwig is my hero and Moist Critical. Those are my 2 heroes. That's what it is. It was Moist. It was not Slicker. Okay, so Bishop E7, again, covering up against the idea of the check. Bishop F1, trade, and now I castle. How did I blunder the A7 pawn? I'll get to that game later. So D4, I go Knight E8 here. Grischuk goes D5. Played D6, rook to E1, and now I played bishop to F5 again. The only advantage white has in this position is white has every single piece on its back rank square. So this is a big no-no in general, but in this case, white has one advantage, which is he has more space in the center because the pawn is on D5 and D6. So even though white has developed no pieces here, the pawn being on D5 here, it gives white more space. So this is kind of like playing, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a game where space matters. But the one square is the only thing that white has here, and it's pretty dank, don't get me wrong, but it does make a difference. So here I went bishop F5, developed the bishop, put it on a nice diagonal down towards the knight and the pawn. Goes knight C3, I played knight to F6, again, got to develop the knight, it's on its original square. Goes queen F3, I go here, not playing bishop takes pawn, because then white can go queen E2 with the double attack, and now I drop one of my bishops. So I go bishop G6, he plays bishop D3, and now I played A6 in chat. This is one good thing. So normally I probably would not think, I'd be like, okay, I just take the bishop and he's going to take back, and it's normal. But during this game, this move bishop D3 actually triggered me. So I think it was in Title Tuesday many weeks ago. I had a game against Darius Swiertz, I think it was, where I played bishop takes and Swiertz took with the pawn. And I actually lost this game because he was able to bring the rook over and attack my king side, or my queen side rather, with this open C file. So normally I would have just taken right away, but I had that aha moment where it's like, wait a second, I've seen this before. I had this in a game many years ago, or not years ago, but many months ago. Actually, let me see if I can find it. Let me see if I'm right or wrong. Let's see. Whatever. I'll look later. But I had this exact line where it was bishop takes, pawn takes. But I remembered that, and so during the game, I'm like, aha! I had this game where I thought I was fine, but I lost the game, and so I remembered that, and I just ignored the idea of taking. So I played pawn to A6. He goes bishop E3. Now I go queen D7. And by the way, this validates my idea because with bishop E3, Grischuk ignores it, and he's begging me to trade because then he has to take with the pawn. So I go queen D7. He plays bishop D4 here. I played rook A E8. h3, bishop d8. Again, this side of the board doesn't really matter. It's very close in terms of where our pawns are. I have the happy smile, the smiley face, and now I just need to play on the only open file on the board. So he goes a3, we trade. I go rook e8, he trades, goes king f1, and now I trade, and I play knight to d7 here. And the point behind me playing knight to d7 is that basically the bishop is my only piece here that's not very good. And if I can get rid of my bishop, then I should be fine. Mind you, white's bishop, while it looks really nice, it doesn't have many targets. There's only the one pawn that it attacks because all these pawns are completely safe here on the queen side of the board. So queen to e2. Didn't Magnus win a game in this line against Roni? It was something very similar. I don't think it was this exact position, but it was a similar line. I forgot to put my beard on. Right, exactly. So I trade. Go bishop f6 here. Again, very conceptual. Get rid of the only bad piece I have here. King f8. Anna said you had the bathtub structure against Hari Krishna. I don't know what that means, but okay. So I trade. I go king e7. And white, again, this whole game revolves around one thing, and that is the pawn being on d5 and d6. So white has more space here, but there are no weaknesses. All my pawns are very compact. They're all protected. And so therefore, this should be a draw. He goes c4. I play a5 here. And now white goes b4. If white were to play pawn to c5 here, which is another move, I can just very simply trade and take and go king d7. And black is much better here because I've got to connect 3, and he's got 2 and 1 split. So this should be really good for black. So he doesn't do this. He goes b4. We trade. Now here I played pawn to b6, which I during the game I liked, but I wasn't sure if it's the best move. Goes g4, h6, f4, g6, knight c3, knight b8. And here Sasha agreed to a draw. He just made a repetition. We move the knights back. He could have played knight to b5 maybe, but after pawn to c5, it's a little bit tricky because my king is much closer. So for example, takes king here. There might be like a g5 move. My king can run really quickly to the king side. So with Sasha only having 30 seconds on the clock, he was obviously nervous about this, and so because of that, he just decided, you know what, I've had enough. I don't really want to risk losing the game. I'll just make the draw. And so we made this 3-move repetition here, and the game ended in a draw after 36 moves. Why didn't I flag him? Well, there was increment, first of all, so you gain time every move. Secondly, if I make a mistake here with only knights on the board, I would just lose instantly. Okay, thank you to Mechaniac for the 20 months. Thank you to Ahayu for the tier 1. Thank you to Leader of Milk for the 2 months. Thank you to GJ Onezi for the prime, and Bitter Lie for the prime as well. So, all right, you guys. So, second game in the books, I made a draw. So, let's move on to the third game against Vladislav Artemiev. So, in this game, I played pawn to c4, c6, d4. d4, d5 played here. So we played the Slav defense here. I trade. I go knight c3, bishop f4, knight 6, e3. This is called the exchange Slav, trading off the pawns on the c file. The game revolves around one open line and basically the bishops. So he goes a6 here, stopping the ideas with knight b5 and knight c7, creating a fork. I go bishop to e2. There's a lot of draws. Yeah, I mean, I think when it's anytime you have something where it's not like first, second, third place like that, anytime it's something where some number of people qualify, everyone's going to be a lot more tentative and trying to play it a lot closer to the vest. So yeah, so I go knight f3, e6, castle, bishop e7, rook to c1, castles. Now I played knight to a4. Idea to try and bring my knight in. Here Artemiev goes knight h5. I played bishop e5, and at this point he made a strange move. I was scared of Artemiev. No, I mean, the thing is, I was worried about the long-term potential. And another thing, you guys, just to get back to all these things. Yeah, so actually, chat, before we do that, let me pop this up. Let's see if my memory is good. So let's see. First of all, chat, let's do a station break. Let's see. So there's this game between Swiertz and me. And am I right? 1 second, chat. Let's see. Okay, let's see if my memory was correct. 1 second. Okay. 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 Okay, 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 okay. Okay. Yeah, and see exactly. Yeah, so it was slightly different, but I was right. It was the same opening, and there was a double pawn capture in the center of the board. So when I looked back at the game today, I vaguely recalled this in my memory, and that's why I remembered this. So this was the game that I was talking about. It was the game that I played against Darius Swiertz. I don't know what the event was specifically, but it was but yeah, this was so this is why I remember the line. All right, so let's get back to the game that I played against Vladislav Artemiev. So here I went bishop e5, he went knight f6. The main reason that I actually made the draw in this game was because I was worried about ending up in something very similar, like something like this, and some kind of like bishop d6 and g5, g4, maybe e5, e4 ideas, because I drew this game against Maximus Vachier-Lagrave in the online FIDE Nations Cup, but I was actually losing in that game, and it was the Exchange Slav. So basically, oh, sorry, did I say Maxime? Sorry, I meant Maxime. Sorry. So sorry. Yeah, sorry guys. So sorry. Yeah. So I was losing that game against Maxime, and so I was worried about the structure, which was the main reason that I didn't try super hard to win the game. Because I knew that when I drew this game, I would have white in the next game also against Pentala Harikrishna. So for that reason, I didn't really feel that it was correct to continue on. However, I should have probably played queen to b3 and put pressure on the pawn on b7. White is maybe slightly better, but I really wasn't convinced. So I figured if I have white in game 4 against Harikrishna, I should have good chances to win. And if I convert there, then I'm in very good shape for finishing in the top 4. All right. So let's keep moving on. Let's move on to the 4th game of the day that I played against Pentala Harikrishna from India. Thank you to Solar Cry for the Prime, No Name Potato for the 3 months, the Mechaniac for the 20 months. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's awesome. 20 months. Wow. How the world has changed in 20 months, let alone 3. Okay, so e4. I play e4. Harikrishna plays c5. I was kind of surprised to see him play a Sicilian. Normally plays e5. So knight f3, e6. I go g3. He goes here. So here I go bishop to g2. Knight to f6. So now I play d3. D6 is played by Harikrishna. Again, keeping it very dry. When is Hikaru starting to stream? Hikaru is streaming right now. Don't worry, you guys. 5 days. 5 days. I look so young when shaved. Yeah, I mean, I've heard that actually. Like, if I don't shave, I look like I'm 35, and if I do, I look like I'm like 20 or something. But happens. So bishop e7. I played rook to e1 here. Here, Harikrishna castles. I played pawn to c3, trying to create a big center here with the connect 3, basically building towards the center. He goes bishop d7, more like 15. Thank you. Knight d2, queen c7. Now I play pawn to a3. You still look old. Don't worry. Thank you. Now Hari plays knight to c5. So now I trade the knights. I go pawn to a4. The idea here that I want to do is I want to put the knight on c4 to attack the pawn on e5. But most importantly, it's that black cannot remove the knight with a pawn push. Because if I go like knight c4, black can just go here and remove the knight. So I play a4, bishop c6, knight c4. Again, no pawn push. Now rook d8. I played f4. And at this point, I felt very optimistic about my position. And Hari played knight d7. And this is where I had a very tough decision. Because I had a feeling the best moves here were to move the queen either to e2 or h5. But then I thought, you know what? Even though I know that after pawn takes, black can play pawn to b5, who cares? Even if black is completely fine here, I can't lose the game. It should be very dry. And I'll take the gamble that he'll actually blunder with knight e5, which he actually did. And now I went bishop f4. He went pawn to f6. And now I played bishop to h3, trying to put pressure on this pawn on e6. Bishop d6. I take the pawn, king h8. And at this point, I think white should be much better, but I kind of lost the thread here. I probably should have taken and gone bishop c4, but at the time I was really worried about something like queen e7, and if I take, that he could maybe take and go f5, and open up on this long diagonal down towards the white king. So I was kind of worried about this. Maybe the computer just laughs in your face and says it's fine. But during the game, I was actually quite worried about this possibility. So I decided I would just take and now go queen e2, try to take the advantage away. He goes here, I go bishop h3, bring the bishop back to this protected kind of semi hut now. I mean, I no longer have the threefold, so it's like it's the broken hut because I'm missing the pawn at f2, but nonetheless it still should be good for white. So bishop c7, I play pawn to b3, guarding the pawn on a4 with the pawn so I can bring my rook into the center of the board, and it's no longer tied down to the pawn on a4. So he goes g6. Now here I make the worst move in the world. I play rook a d1. I really don't know what I was thinking. Here I probably should have gone something like bishop g2, followed by rook d1. I think I would have won this game almost for sure here if I had done this. Instead I played rook d1. The bathtub formation. Okay, is this a bathtub? I don't know. Is this a bathtub? I can't tell. Is this a bathtub? It's a boat. Yeah, actually, it looks more like a boat, doesn't it? I can't tell. What's it look like, a boat or a bathtub? It looks more like a boat to me. It looks like a boat. Yeah, it's a boat. It's a boat, or the horse is taking a bath. The horse is taking a bath, yeah. Yeah, it looks like a boat, but actually with the horse up here, it does look like the horse is taking a bath, to be quite honest. Or it could be Noah's Ark, right? It's almost Noah's Ark, because that's true. There are horses on the Ark. So, yeah. All right, before I get any sillier, after rook d1, pawn to f5, the problem with this move is that if I take the pawn, black can trade and go bishop to f3, skewering my two rooks on e2 and d1 here. So here I went bishop g2, pawn to f4, went rook f1, basically gambling. So he takes. I try to cut the diagonal at least of one bishop. And the thing is, after takes, I go king h1, and we create the... we create like the metal shield. So basically because black has his pawn on h4 here, or h2, my king is very safe. It's completely stabilized and protected. Black can never get in because he has no knights. So the only way that black, the umbrella, I don't know if the umbrella, okay, I don't know what you want to call it, but all right. So we trade the queens, and you'll see that basically black can never touch my king, because he has no light square bishop and he has no knight that he can move. So basically at this point, my king is very safe because of this pawn right in front of it. So now he trades. I trade. He goes rook d3. And now after queen b7, I think the tide really starts to turn. Maybe black is still better after pawn to a5. But Hari blundered here. He played rook g3, allowing me to play queen takes a7 here. And now the problem for black is there's no rook g1 check. If black goes queen g5, for example, to try and create the checkmate using the rook, the queen, and the pawn, I can play queen takes, and I cover the square with my queen and my rook, and I also threaten a checkmate on the black king on h8 as well. So here, Hari, after a very long think, played rook g1, which is not a good move, because basically once we simplify here, it's not actually a simple draw, because even though my king is open, the knight can always block the queen checks, which I think Hari missed, because when he went into this line, I think he assumed, okay, well, there have to be ways that I can just check and make a draw. But actually, it's very tricky. So now I go a5. He takes. I go check. I go check. And then I go a6. And very important here that that this bishop is cut. So, like, if you could take this pawn away from c5, black could move the bishop and stop the pawn. But because there's this ugly pawn in the way, the bishop is actually really misplaced here, and the knight dominates the bishop and the queen. So now he goes queen g4. I go queen f3, queen e6. I go queen to e3. Queen here, now I go king to d3, and basically, again, there's no way to just stop the pawn, so the only chance black has here is to use the queen and the bishop. So he goes bishop f6, I go queen takes pawn, goes check, I go here, knight d2, great move, by the way, knight covers everything. As you see, black has no checks, the knight is just dominating the queen. He goes queen a1, and now I go pawn to a7. Here, Pantala plays h5, and this is where I blunder the game away. I played queen to b6. The reason I played this was because I very simply thought that there were no checks. I thought I'm just moving my queen up and I win the game. I completely forgot about this queen c3, queen e5 check here. I'm not even sure why, but I just did. Because what I should have done was play queen c7 check, hit the king. King goes up, and then I make a check. More geometry. King goes back, and then I go here. Fool geometry, make the queen. And now black goes check. I go king e2, queen to e5, king to d1, and the queen no longer has any checks. No checks here, no check here, no check here because the pawn's in the way, and then I make the queen, and I just win the game here. So it was very unfortunate that at this point I just blundered with this queen e5 check, because now maybe white is still better here. Actually, why is white better? Here, 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 here. Is white better? No, I'm skeptical that white's actually better here. Probably not. So at this point, it should be a draw. Unfortunately, I go here, and I actually blundered. I played queen here thinking I could play on. I completely forgot that black could trade queens. If I'd realized that, I would have probably just gone back and made the draw. But I completely forgot that you could just trade and go check, winning the pawn on a7 here because it's a double attack. So now I go here, takes. Now I just basically have to end the game immediately. I go knight here. And now just take, and as you guys know, this is a theoretical draw. Wrong color bishop here, so black can never make a queen. Basically, the bishop needs to be on the light squares and controlling the critical pawn push, which wins the game. And so at this point after, at this point after I go king h1, I offered a draw, and Hari Krishna accepted. So this was my fourth draw of the day. Certainly not what I was hoping for, obviously. But it is what it is, and you just have to keep moving on. So 4 draws, and now we'll take a look at the 5th game. I will add, I was not in a good mood, though, to be clear. After this 4th game, I was pretty upset at myself for messing it up. So here, d4, knight f6, Duba plays c4, e6, knight f3, d5, g3, bishop e7, bishop g2, castles, knight c3. Playing the Catalan defense. He played this against me in the preliminaries of the last event as well, in the Lindores Abbey tournament, so it wasn't a complete surprise. He also won a very critical game in this opening against who's it against? Against Sergei Karyakin. So I was familiar with that game as well. He went knight e5, I went c5. He trades. We trade the queens. I take knight to e3. I go c3. Again, all standard opening moves here, 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 here. And this is where he deviates. So in my previous game against him, I believe in the qualifier, I think it was, I moved my bishop back to e7 here. I drew the game pretty easily, but it's a slightly imprecise move. So I played rook b8 this time here. Bishop f4, bishop b7, and here Danil changes it up. He plays bishop takes bishop. In his game against Sergei Karyakin, he took the rook, takes, and I believe he played he played this line, bishop d6. Bishop takes, I think it's king f8, f3, and I forget how the game went, but it was something like this, and king f1 if I remember correctly. And Danil did win this game, but he was not better. And as you can see, if you look at the objective valuation, black is completely fine. So Danil obviously realized that I had looked at this line before the game today. So he played a new move. He took on b7 and played rook to b1. And here I played a move that I don't know if it's correct. I basically, when I played the move in the game, it basically was with recognition of exactly what the position we would get 10 moves later. But I don't know if it was right. Maybe I should have played b5 here, because the position in the game I think was very unclear. Because I did this. He goes knight a5. I can't capture the knight because of the pin. I can't move the rook because then his bishop captures. So I takes my rook. We trade knights. Now I go bishop e7. The idea being that my pawn dominates the knight. My bishop covers both of these critical squares, and I can just bring the rook over to gobble the knight. So here Danil plays c4. I go rook b8. He goes c5. If I capture with the pawn, white can just move the king and then move the knight back to safety. If I take with the knight or bishop, white just trades, and it's an even trade, trading the knights. So here I go rook takes knight. He plays c6, forking the rook and the knight. Rook c7, takes, rook d7, and I basically concluded that this should be a draw with correct play, but I'm not sure in retrospect if it actually was the correct decision. My rationale for doing this is basically I have a bishop and one pawn for the rook, but more importantly, he's got an ugly pawn on d3 that I can kind of blockade with my rook and my bishop, so he can't ever really use this pawn in a manner of speaking where it's gonna do much. So here I go g6, rook c1. I play bishop to c5, pawn to a4, king g7, rook c4, a5. Again, get the solid setup here. Bishop and the bishop guarding both pawns. No pawn pushes here. So Danil plays f4. I play h5. Still no real pawn push. And this pawn actually is a big weakness. So white can't activate the rooks and get them into the game. So I think already it's very hard for white to prove that this is much of an advantage. Nil plays d4. I take. He goes here. I go pawn to e5. Critical move, by the way. The one thing that white can try to do is run the king up here and sacrifice his rook and get these two pawns and make a queen with this a pawn. So it's very important here that I go pawn to e5. Takes. Did Hikaru exercise? He looks thinner without the beard and mustache. Well, I mean, that's always how I look. I look like I'm 15. So he takes. I play bishop takes e5, king to d3. And now I go bishop to d6. Important move. Just the pawns and the bishop just guard each other very nicely. And I have a 3v2 on this side, so any potential endgame is completely fine. King e4. Then I play bishop to c5. Again, solidify the bishop, put it on the critical square where everything is defended. Goes king e5, and now I just start waddling with the bishop, just wait forever. And at this point, the game is completely drawn. Not really much that either side can do here, because after rook d7, bishop g7, white kind of can't do his original idea, because what white would like to do is something like this, and capture the pawn. But the problem is after takes here, my pawn is not here. My pawn is much quicker going up the board. I just have 1, 2, 3, 4. He has to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to get a queen. So white can't really ever go for this pawn. If white can't go for the pawn, everything here is completely safe for me, and everything is safe here for me. So there's just nothing white can do. So he goes rook d7, and now we just repeat the moves. As I said before, nothing that either side can do. So therefore, Danil, I think, offered the draw, or actually not offered draw. We made the repetition. I ended the day on 5 draws out of 5 games. Very, very rare, by the way. This almost never happens to me. So not necessarily great. I would have liked to be on +1. I would have liked to have won that game against Hari Krishna especially. But, you know, I probably was in bad shape against Magnus, so it all kind of evens out. So, all right, you guys. So now I'll put up the standings. So here are the standings so you guys can see it. This is Group A from today. We played 5 games, as you see. Currently, I am in 4th place. Artemiev has 3.5 points out of 5. Dubov on 3 out of 5. Magnus on 2.5 out of 5. I'm on 2.5 out of 5. Grischuk on 2 out of 5. And Hari Krishna is on 1.5 out of 5. So it's actually completely fine at the moment because top 4 players qualify in both groups. So it's not a winner-take-all, which is very important to remember. So yeah, in Group B, there is Vache Lagrave, Ding Liren, Jan Nepomniachtchi, Fabiano Caruana, Temur Rajabov, and Anish Giri. They will play 5 games tomorrow, so I don't play tomorrow. I will play the next 5 games on Monday, and we'll see how it goes. But anyway, in 4th place, or shared 3rd with Magnus right now. So I feel pretty good about my standing. It's not ideal, obviously, but at the moment, I have to live with it, and it was good enough at least for today. But I need to play better on Monday. All right. So